guys, we are going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us again for another Fluid Webinar Series event. Today's webinar is titled Work Smarter, Not Harder. We're going to be talking about understanding account-based marketing, what it is and how to do it, and give you guys some strategic thoughts around it, see if your business isn't a great fit for it, and how we could help you put one of these into place within your organization. So just as usual, my name is Dustin Cederholm. I'm the Digital Marketing Director for Fluid. I have with me today Phil Case. Phil, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, good to be with you. I've been a ready guest on the webinar series over the last year or so with Dustin, and excited to talk about this today, one of the topics I'm most passionate about.
Yeah, we're definitely excited about today's webinar, and if you guys are as well, you can follow along as we live tweet the event. We are on Twitter. Use the hashtag Fluid Webinar Series, and you can always just direct message us at GetFluid. Today we're going to be a little bit quicker than usual. This is a topic that I think we can go through in kind of short time frame, but we have a lot of really interesting information, and we think that you guys will get a lot of value out of this, and so it'll be a little bit quicker. Just so you also know, we will at 12 o'clock go live on Facebook, and we're going to have Jesse Angelis join us then. So if you guys want to switch over, you can actually watch us live as we answer your Q&A. And so if you do have questions, please send them through the chat or the Q&A, and we'd be happy to answer them at the end of this presentation. So with that, let's just get started. I think the big question is, what is account-based marketing? I have here just a quick definition of what account-based marketing is, and that is account-based marketing is a marketing strategy that focuses on an organization's most sought-after clients using inbound and outbound marketing tactics to introduce, lure, and close targeted accounts. That's kind of my corporate definition. I don't know, Phil, how do you define account-based marketing?
I often think as marketers, we think we need to go out and cast a wide net and go fishing and try to bring in as many fish as we can and pull them into the boat, and we consider that success. But as we're smart about marketing, the definition here I love, which is most sought after clients, and I usually tell the organizations we work with on this, go talk to your sales team and who are the clients that they would just get excited about, who would they salivate to have in their lead pipeline, and that is rapidly nearing a close, that they're going to win the deal. Those are the clients that this is a perfect fit for. So instead of casting a wide net and doing kind of broad inbound marketing, this is like deciding which girl you're going to date and pursuing her and courting her. And so I think even a dating analogy to say it's that type of kind of intimate detail that we'll get into, because these are real people and we want to build sincere and real relationships with them, and account-based marketing is the way to do that.
Absolutely. I hear so often the rifle versus shotgun approach is kind of a similar analogy. So this is definitely more of a rifle tactic. It's one-to-one. We're going after the big clients that maybe your sales team has been pursuing for many years. Maybe they've been stifled by a gatekeeper and can't get to that decision maker. Or maybe you just have a large list of these and you want to create a comprehensive strategy to go after them, but you know who they are. And so we will talk about kind of the steps of all this and a little bit more around who uses. Yes, Phil.
And one last thing on this, I think one of the reasons this topics we love is that Fluid, we're passionate about growth acceleration within the companies we work with. And in order to accelerate growth, which is really revenue, where marketing impacts sales the most is in these type of channels where we know exactly who the sales team needs to go after to grow their book of business, and marketing is having a direct impact on that, and it's measurable, and we know that we're able to close 10 more deals from it, and that's worth $100,000. So those type of activities where marketing and sales are working side by side in this demand generation format, I think account-based marketing is a good fit for that.
And you make a really good point right there. One of the unique things about account-based marketing is that you can put an ROI to it based off the type of clients that you're going after. Usually this is tier 1 clients, and so with kind of the shotgun approach, you'll get the small projects, the medium projects, the large projects, maybe not quite as often, but you're getting a different kind of mix. But here you kind of know what you expect this person to sign on as, and that's why you're targeting them in this way. And so I think this is a really great way for you to really put that ROI and that dollar to the bottom line of how will this campaign affect me. And for the most part, it's 1 or 2 closed accounts in this kind of a game that really can have a huge impact. Mm-hmm. We're not talking hundreds of leads here. This is very targeted, 1, 2, 3. Knocking out 3 of the 50 you've been going after for so long can be really significant.
So as we talk about this next slide here about when to use account-based marketing, B2B isn't particularly important. This really is a good fit when you're, for instance, a software business and you're trying to win over net new clients of other businesses. When you have identified targeted accounts, I would submit that every business should have, especially if you're B2B, identifiable target accounts. If you don't, that's something to maybe sharpen the pencil a little bit on.
And an easy way to do that is simply go back and look at your tier 1. Who are you billing the most? Who are you getting the most revenue from? We want to do lookalikes of those. That's if you don't know the actual names, you can kind of back into it. And what does the companies that give you the most revenue look like? And can we recreate those and mimic those by building a list of those types of clients?
And so, I think when we talk about client or account size, so many of the businesses we work with are in the SMB space. That's because it's a startup and they're just desperate for cash. They'll work with just about anyone. But as organizations mature and as they then say, okay, who are we and how will we be long-term sustainable? They know they have to move to mid-market and to more enterprise type accounts. And this is exactly when account-based marketing is a great fit for. It's when you're trying to kind of upgrade your future client list. It's when you're going after, those kind of top tier of clients. And especially when the sales funnel is longer than a week or 2, when it's sometimes 3 to 6 months to a year, this is an excellent fit because this is about building long-term relationships.
Absolutely. Another thing with it is really ABM really works for identifiable decision makers. This could be your sales guy sitting with the sales manager, and he's had the same 5 people on his list for a year, maybe even longer, and you just can't break down the wall to get into it. ABM is a strategy that really helps them achieve that. So if you guys are sales managers, C-suite, this is something that really look at how you're managing these groups, and if they're struggling, this is something that you could employ. The last one is just active sales force. So ABM, in my opinion, works best when you do have sales, and you've heard me and Fluid talk a lot about smarketing and the sales and marketing revolution, where we really need to bring these two groups together a lot closer, and ABM relies on that type of a relationship. Most of the marketing that Phil and I have been talking about for a long time is really relationship-based marketing anymore. We've gotten away from just smearing the industry, and now we want to do segmenting and targeted communication, and this is just another outlet for that, and maybe even goes a little bit further where it's the one-to-one.
And I would say especially, it's interesting, we usually will often approach a CEO or a VP of sales before we talk to marketing, because they tend to get account-based marketing quicker. They see the value and they see the direct impact it will have on revenue. One quick aside, Inside Sales, which we know is a fairly large company here in Utah, valued at multiples billions, they recently underwent some major structural changes in terms of how they did lead flow. In the past, it was we need to cram 1,000 leads down every salesperson's throat in order to hit our numbers because we know the math works out to X. But they kind of went back and through their software and algorithms, which are quite impressive, they're able to take those broader lead lists, pre-qualify these individuals, and go from thousands down to only, say, 200 or 300. And they had a lot less leads, and they actually kind of shrunk their sales team a little bit. But what they found was they closed at a much higher rate, they were more focused, and they were able to progress those larger accounts through the funnel than just focus on everyone. And so it was interesting how they have kind of undergone this change. It was a little bit painful, but for them it was more about the quality of the lead flow versus the quantity of the lead flow.
That's really interesting you bring that up. I once listened to the CMO of Symantec speak, and excuse us, we'll stop the background noise. Sorry about that. But so I listened to the CMO of Symantec, and she was talking to one of her sales guys, and he had come to her so excited because he had made 100% of the calls that he'd been asked to do, and he just hammered through these calls. And she kind of looked at him, and she wasn't as impressed as he was with himself. And what it came down to is she basically said, why didn't you just pick the best ones and call those first, and then you wouldn't have had to go so quickly, and you would have called the ones that really mattered. And so it sounds like Inside Sales has realized the same things. Some of these enterprise companies are really kind of flipping the script of what we think traditional, just dial. And I think even small companies could really take a page out of that book.
Yeah, agreed.
So just real quickly, in an account-based marketing strategy, who are all the players internally to your company that are required? And we just talked about it. It really is sales and marketing. Those are the keys. But I think for this to really work, you have to have a lot more buy-in. Phil, what have you seen as far as when you talk with people and when these work best?
Ultimately, you have to get most everyone's buy-in on this, because customer service matters to the IT and analytics. But we typically start with sales and suite. I usually begin with the CEO, and they're the ones that get most interested. A quick example, one of our clients, Conversa, we've been working with them for well over a year and a half now, and we've been talking about account-based marketing, knowing it's a great fit for them, and I wasn't getting any traction. And I finally went skiing with the CEO one day and spent about 3 or 4 hours on the slopes talking through it, and he said, I don't know why we didn't start this months ago. Come meet me next week, let's pull in all the key players and start, and we started right away. And so sometimes, they see the impact that this can have, and it just makes so much more sense to, just focus on where you're actually going to get results.
That's a good point, and something I wanted to mention is you kind of heard ABM. ABM kind of started in about 2015, and it's been going on long before that, but that's really where it became the buzzword. And people kind of thought they would rush to it, and people haven't necessarily. You don't see a ton of ABM out there. It's become bigger. 2016, different technologies, things of that nature are making it easier, but it's still a growing thing. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity for companies to take this on, as with the example of Conversa.
Mm-hmm.
And so, quickly, we want to just kind of give you the steps to creating an account-based marketing strategy, something for you guys to be considering with your teams. If I were going to go down this path, what does it actually take? The first is obviously a list. Phil, maybe you can help kind of tell us a little bit about how people are building lists and where they might get these names.
It's interesting. We built it a couple of ways. One is, first and foremost, usually visiting with the sales team to say, who are those mid-market to enterprise prospects that you would love to begin to get to know and develop a relationship with. So we have them pull their key kind of suspect and prospects list that they want to go after. Secondly, we'll often have them say, here are the top, most profitable, and best valued accounts that we currently have. So we'll take their existing list and kind of find the tier 1 of those clients. We'll also look through their prospect list and have them kind of rate those. We then take that information, and that allows us to go into our list providers and with the research that we'll do, and not only find lookalikes and matches and kind of reverse engineer how do we get more of these types of qualified companies based on the information, one, they've given us, going through some of the industry codes and beginning to kind of scrub those lists. So we love to not only first ascertain the companies that we think will be a great fit for them based on the information they've given us, but then when we get down to the detail of their email addresses and names and titles and phone numbers and even mailing addresses and social profiles, anything that we can get, as we begin to build those lists, we start to really profile not just companies but real individuals that they want to get to know long term.
And I've even gone into businesses and seen where they have a big target and a vinyl graph, and they have the list of those companies. And so if you can get it to that point, I really think you're at an advantage. Every day you're looking at it. That's who you're targeting, and then being able to just build that list. Who are the titles? Who are the people? And deliver at ABM to them. Step 2 is channel identification. I think that this is a really important thing because there are so many channels available, and we often get lost in this, and not all of them really fit with an ABM strategy specifically. And so this next slide really is my consideration. I feel channel identification is twofold. First off, you need to sit down with your group and strategize what channels are your target accounts actually engaging on. They may be all over the place, but they may not be engaging on every single one in a business related way that they're going to be thinking, this is going to be a sell. And we'll kind of talk about how there are some channels that you may not expect that really work based on the custom audience list that you're using, and so it actually does bring them into play. But first off, I think it's just a internal strategy session. Where are our target audience? And there might be some very creative solutions to that.
And one of the ways to do that is, if we kind of back into this, we've done buyer persona mapping along with buyer journey, so we understand a little bit more about these people than simple name and email addresses, but we begin to understand where they spend their time, where they might hang out, where they might see ads, how they think, how they make decisions, kind of behaviors around that. So the real goal is to be as creative as possible to say people are humans, and how do we interact with another human and get them to warm up to a company. So instead of calling cold leads, you're calling warmed up leads. And so our focus with this is to, the channels that are selected are really those channels we feel will have the most direct impact in building a real relationship. So a lot of the time it's doing a direct response campaign with a physical mailer. As part of that, with some digital kind of air cover and social content that we're publishing. So we want to effectively surround these people in multiple channels and influence them to have them almost inadvertently think, wow, who are these guys? I keep seeing them everywhere, and almost kind of ease into it. It's kind of that mentality of turning up or having a frog, turn up from cold to boiling water, and they almost don't realize it, but all of a sudden they're warmed up and they begin to interact and engage with the brand because it feels familiar. And what they don't realize is that we've been kind of playing to their psyche, and because there's multiple channels and a cadence that's engaged them in a way comfortable with them, that they have been able to develop unaided brand awareness and even some interest and curiosity. And so that's, as we think about channel mix, there's kind of a larger play there, and we want to make sure that we're touching them, as frequent as we need to in ways that, it just seem natural.
Absolutely agree. And I'm noticing that the direct mail piece isn't on this slide, and it's kind of a cost consideration. If you can do that, there's ways, to do this on a budget, but I think to really employ a great ABM, you do need that direct piece. Step 3 is just asset creation. Now that we've figured out what channels we want to be on, we have to create the assets to deploy those. And so this is an example of all the different banner ad sizes that are kind of out there. Not comprehensive, obviously, but they're, just a sampling. And I think that what you really want to do is pick the top performers. A lot of that's IAB, and so that you can get more coverage, more of the channels will display them. But consider, just what do you really need? And so here's a small list of the things to really just get started. And then step 4 is deployment. We've got all of our assets, we've got our strategy in place, now we need to make it run. And so this is setting up the different campaigns within Facebook, within LinkedIn, your email campaigns, AdWords, getting the assets as far as the direct mailer and that list, and making sure that you have a list provider and you're going to be able to mail it out, and just all of those different things. And now it's hitting play and everything is going out. We usually talk about 10 to 12 week campaigns or so, and so this is kind of what you're starting to watch as this goes out. And then the last step of it is, as it goes out, you're just monitoring and optimizing. And I think this is a really important step in everything, because as you start an ABM campaign, one thing that we've noticed is there is a lot of fine-tuning involved. And the learning is often not based on data at first, because a lot of people say, oh, these are our target audience, but then the title that we have isn't reacting the way that we had expected them to. And so we might need to go up to the C level to try to get it to trickle down, or even down to a director level to get it to percolate up to the VP or C level. And so there's a lot of just monitoring and watching how the response is going to find out if people are really doing what we expected them to do. And if they're not, how do we change that to achieve that?
One last thing, just to underline all of this, is just the systems we need to execute. It's hard to execute a good ABM strategy without good systems and technology. So typically, the companies we work with, not only do we have the assets built out and list, but we're working within a CRM like a Salesforce. We're working within a marketing automation platform like Acton or like HubSpot. So it's important that we can have everything. We try to build these campaigns within existing client systems so they're trackable, they're identifiable, and this allows us to better measure the effectiveness, and everything that Dustin just shared in terms of optimization and monitoring happen through those platforms.
Agreed. And so one of the last things we really wanted to go over is the importance of cadence. And for me, this is where the sales and marketing really comes together. Rarely have we been able to do a successful account-based marketing without a salesperson involved in it, because I think the direct mail, the display ads, everything that's going into really is this person looking for more information, and we want the salesperson to react. Where these are B2B, where they're longer funnel sales, where they're high dollar, there's a lot of explaining that goes into it. And so this isn't going on e-commerce, buying a pair of shoes. You're actually needing to explain a lot of things that people may or may not want to read online the entire time. And so what ABM is doing is it's kind of giving them the white papers and case studies and information on landing pages for people to get a concept of it. But it's really the sales guy still reaching out and making that phone call of, I got you interested, how do I really get you to the next step and speed everything up? And so we're kind of, to Phil's first point, like, this is the dating phase. Now we've got you on the date, but you got to bring that salesperson in to seal the deal.
Mm-hmm. And the interactions as we get further in the campaign, these will tend to run 8 to 12 weeks, sometimes a little longer. But we like to, by middle of the campaign, begin actively involving the salespeople. Not only are emails sent directly with their name on it, but we're beginning to have them call in to those more interested, engaged leads. And so we begin to kind of back out of it from a ABM perspective while they continue to kind of increase their presence with these actual prospects.
And then back to step 5, which is the monitoring. What is sales finding out? Are we reaching, again, the right title? Is the company the right size, et cetera, et cetera? They can be an informant on how do we need to tweak the digital and direct aspects of what we're doing.
And then lastly, we wanted just to share a brief example. So Pluralsight is a fairly large technology company. They do a lot of education and learning and training for developers and now designers, and they've expanded their platform, and they're global in nature, been very, very successful. And they approached us a little while back and wanted to do an account-based marketing campaign. And so just as an example of how this strategy built out for them, first off, they gave us their kind of top 300 key accounts that they wanted to get in front of. These are some of the larger Fortune 500 around the world, and they gave us the kind of director to VP level positions that they wanted to get the attention of. And that's sometimes difficult to do with corporations of those sizes. And so we took that list of companies that they had provided, and we began to build out, what for those titles that we kind of pre-identified that they thought would be strategic. How deep can we go? Can we get 3 to 4 to 5 individuals within each organization? What information can we buy and validate and make sure is accurate? As we begin to build out the list, we begin to map the strategy and the cadence. And this was one of the more fun ones that per lead they were willing to spend up to about $900 because of how valuable these enterprise clients were. And so as we built out this kind of approach to this market, we were able to do a little bit more creative things here. So not only did we have emails and landing pages and social content that was deployed on social channels and ad campaigns, but we were able to even include a direct response campaign, which was a multi-touch. So for instance, we begin serving up week 1 social content that these directors and VP level individuals would see in LinkedIn and Facebook, on Twitter, We'd then, send an email the following week. We'd then reach out to them via LinkedIn direct messages and Twitter direct messages. And then based on some of the responsiveness there, by week 4, these key prospects, we would send them kind of a plain box that they would open up with a light bulb with a message that says, this is how you're used to learning. This is how ideas have come in the past. Let Pluralsight show you a better way. And then we'd have a little bit more messaging, and by week 6 or 7, they each received a smart LED light bulb with really neat packaging that as you opened up, the sides dropped down, incredible branding on it, and then they got a smart LED light bulb that already had the plug to go, and they saw it was already coded for the Pluralsight branding, and it just, for them it was a gift, and with some messaging that kind of tied right into the campaign to say, we want to build a relationship with you. And just being able to kind of build out that cadence that then continued to weeks 10 and 12 based on the engagement of those prospects, that was one that was fun to do. One, because kind of the cost per acquisition of these leads, we had a little bit more to work with there, but because they were so willing to be creative and really tie in their branding and messaging into the campaign and make the investment of both time and resources to do it right.
And I think that's really what it's all about, is this is something that lets you shine and really show your brand's personality, what really sets you apart. And so many times with our offerings, we have competitors who are pretty close to us, and we really have to, through representing relationships or just true value add, we have a better proprietary system, whatever it might be. We have to find a great way to show that to people, and we also have to get them to listen to it. So many times, you get a direct mail and you just toss it. And so that's why the cadence of this and the ongoing aspect of it and the multi-touch point, the cross-device, everything about that really works with getting somebody to sit down and say, okay, I'm going to give you 5 minutes. And in today's world, getting 5 minutes is pretty much gold. And does that relay into a salesperson getting in the door and getting to sit with you, getting that, skiing trip, getting that golf round or just a lunch, whatever it is. But I think that's what's so important about doing this specifically.
So as we kind of conclude here in summary, it very much is, I would even say, maybe it's not even a rifle approach, maybe more it's the sniper approach. And we got them in our targets, and now we need to, use all means to bring them in. But really the B2B company that has high value contracts, when it's hard to reach decision makers, this is such a great fit, and you'll find no better strategy, I think, that you could execute. But as we talked about building this list, that's really the most critical step up front, because that then determines the cadence, it determines type of content and assets that we're deploying, and the quality of the data, kind of comes through when these campaigns are successful. As Dustin mentioned, we don't have to, bring in hundreds of contacts. Success of a campaign might be determined at 5 or 10 accounts that are in the pipeline and then close. And this idea of being iterative and tweaking and testing as you go and being open to making some pivots as we learn, I think is the right mentality to have.
Absolutely. And just the last part, being creative, you need to be able to stand out. And in a world when everybody is doing display advertising, everybody's already sending emails, they're maybe sending a direct piece here and there. How do you actually pull it all together, make it into an account-based marketing strategy, not just one-off with this channel, one-off with the other channel? You may have different people even running those, and they're just not really working well together. This really brings that omni-channel approach that we're all trying to achieve to a strategic campaign that you absolutely will be recognized for. This is something, again, it's been talked about a lot, but still not a lot of people are doing it. And so the more creative you can and the more together you can bring this, the better the results will be.
And I think you'll find as technology continues to improve and people get more and more annoyed with advertising, and people don't like to be sold, but they like to be invited, they like to learn, they like thought leadership, they like you to educate them and challenge their way of thinking. Account-based marketing will only grow in popularity, and we're helping pioneer some of the efforts both here in Utah and working with organizations such as Acton in developing their own account-based marketing platform. So this is something that we look forward to, and we'll continue to make considerable investment in.
And you brought some up that just kind of came to mind there, Phil, but it's almost a brag point. When done well, it gives your sales guys something to really brag about as they go, into different sales approaches, or sales meetings, excuse me. And it almost increases morale. When somebody's stoked about the company, stoked about their sales collateral that they're going around with, almost increases their energy and can help increase the sale as well. So there's kind of a intangible to it, in my opinion, as well. So we're going to jump to questions, and we're going to go to Facebook. But before we do, I want to thank Phil for joining us today. I appreciate you being on.
Good to be here, and thanks for spending a few minutes to talk about what I think is one of the most important topics that's out there in B2B marketing today.
I would agree. So we are quickly going to take a short break, and we're going to switch over to Facebook Live. We will continue the webinar so you can hear the Q&A from here as well. But give us just 1 second, we'll get it set up, and you'll see that go live in just a moment. Fantastic. We're here again at Fluid doing our monthly webinar. I have Jesse Angelis join me, our Director of Business Development. And for those of you in Facebook land, we have been doing a webinar for the last 30 or so minutes, which you can find in about a week or so as we post it to our resource pages, getfluid.com/resources. And we were talking about account-based marketing today, and we're going to take a short Q&A from the crowd. And so we're just going to go ahead and jump into that. Jesse, our first question is, how do I find the right clients to pursue? And thinking, maybe in account-based marketing, I know you sit with a lot of clients, and one of the things I love about you is you do a really great job of asking them the questions so that they'll give you the answers to help us pursue. What kinds of advice would you give them to find their clients that they need to go after?
It's a great question. The best way to be able to figure that out is, well, one, kind of being able to go away from the shotgun approaches that typically sales individuals will go after or sales teams will, and being able to rely on certain things such as account-based marketing on that one. And what it does is it's being able to get them to know on a personal level. Not everybody's a fit in sales, and not everybody's a fit to do business with. And that's a broad stroke as well as a shotgun approach. So being able to find out who's going to work well is look at the history that you've worked with. The clients that have been able to do, not necessarily that are cash flow positive, but are more on the end of, we've had a great relationship with, open communication, and we've really been able to fulfill for them. And that's for any industry.
And you and I sat in a meeting the other day, and they were talking about culture fit. I think that's something where the numbers do make sense, but can you even dial it further to which are our clients that really bring in a lot of revenue, but which ones also fit the culture? And with that comes ease and positivity within your organization, within the other organization, more long-term relationships. So I think culture is one of the things we forget in this.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And that's one of the things one of the old sales adages, people buy from people they like. And when they like you and they respect you, then money kind of takes a back seat on that one. And you're absolutely right. Culture is so strong in that one. And it's a term that's thrown around quite a bit. But culture means a lot of different things for a lot of different companies. They mean anything from, how open on communication or do you get us as a company? So as salespeople, it does them good to do their homework on the people that they're talking to instead of just pitching to everybody.
I agree. I think we've kind of gone into the weeds because we are passionate about this
absolutely.
Answer. But I think in a nutshell, it's look at the history, consult with your salespeople, and then make sure it's a fit for you as well.
Absolutely.
Let's take our next one. Next question is, how many accounts can my company afford to pursue? That is actually a really good question, and I believe that Phil actually kind of talked about this. In the example of Pluralsight that we gave in the webinar, Phil was saying that we had a CPA of about $900, and when we're talking accounts that are 6 figures, 7 figures to get a contract, that's well within their means, and probably they could probably even go higher, for those types of clients. But I think that in answering the question, how many accounts can my company afford to pursue, you really need to get back to what are the channels that you want to use.
Right.
Are you going to be using a direct mail piece? And then how fancy is that direct mail piece? How expensive? And I don't think you have to make these things expensive. I think it's about being creative, and the fact that you've actually done a well-planned direct mailer. And in the webinar example, we talked about it was a 3-piece mailer. And I think it's just intriguing. So often we get one thing from somebody. Do you ever get another one? You toss it and it's like, okay, that was your one try at it. But if you have a progressively, larger or better product that they're getting, you actually are creating a dialogue through direct mail. And so I think that's a really fun way to do it. And you can do that kind of, you can go expensive or you can go cheap. So I don't know that there's really a great answer. What I think you need to do is look at what is the count of your target audience, what is the expected return. And again, with account-based marketing, you really can do that because these are tier ones. You're going after people that you expect to be, a 6-figure or a 7-figure, or, even if it's $10,000 for one client, if that's your contract, if you spend $10,000 on the whole campaign, just one is going to put you positive. So,
well, we got to look at the day in the world we live in today. Everything is mobile, everything is direct, it's in our hands. But that direct mailing piece, as you were talking about, that is profound. I've talked to other companies that have used that before. And it's amazing who they will be able to get in front of just because of that one, because it takes time. And people appreciate that time in being able to engage with them on a more personal level past an email. So it makes more sense to have that because you're giving something that's meaningful on that side. Not just typically a dealership with a little key on there. You know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Come in here and see if it unlocks the car.
Exactly.
That doesn't have a whole lot of emotion to it. It's bringing that emotional content over there, that emotional quotient, if you will, that helps them go, you know what, maybe they really care about obtaining my business. And that speaks true to anybody, including myself. I'm a big consumer. If I feel emotional, I'll give it more attention.
I think that's a really great point, and actually a great segue into our next question. How does ABM differ from simple retargeting or list matching? That to me is also a really good question because when we sell this, so many people are like, well, aren't we doing this already? And the answer truly is no. No, you're not. And I actually think you really touched on it just now. What I think is different about ABM is, first off, you really sat down and you targeted these people, whereas simple retargeting or list matching is everybody. You didn't actually, you're just going and it's kind of more the shotgun again. I'm going to take large quantities and I'm going to hope a few of them boil down.
Right.
But with this, you're actually selecting the top tier, you have a good reason for them, and then I think it's a dialogue. It's the fact that there's a planned dialogue that has a set duration and you deliver a specific set of information that they can grow on and then eventually get that trust. But I think what's so important about that dialogue is what you just said, and that's the emotional quotient that list matching or retargeting can achieve.
Absolutely. And we've had those conversations with clients together. And one of the funniest things we hear is, it's kind of weird, that's kind of creepy, You're being able to dial down and find that person that I'm looking at. But, when we think about certain things, let's go back to family. And family, what do they always say during the holidays when you get the gift, right? Maybe it's not the sweater that you wanted, but it's the thought that counts. It's exactly that. When we're talking about reaching out to clients on that particular level and being able to hit on that, just right on the dot, saying like, how do they know that I like that? But they're trying to be able to understand you, not to be able to gain your confidence, but to show that they care and that they're really wanting to be able to invest into that meeting.
Yep. It's you said it so well. It's that you actually care enough to put them through this program, and they recognize quickly that I'm being targeted, and these people are really coming after me, and hopefully it's done in a respectful and emotional way that it's like, I'm really starting to like these guys, even though I know they're trying to sell me something.
Of course.
Let's jump just to the next one. Question is, can my marketing manager handle this, or do we need to handle an agency? Good question. And we get these questions almost every webinar. And it's hard to answer these questions. I think that if you're not familiar with account-based marketing, you really should have somebody behind it who does kind of understand it. But that doesn't mean that you don't have a really excellent marketing manager out there who's done their research. I mean, there's account-based marketing conferences out there, and so I know, and I met directors and marketers there, so I know there's a lot of very skilled people with this. And even in the Pluralsight example, we were working directly with their marketing director, and so they understood what was going on as well. Part of the advantage I think the agency provides is some of that creativity and out-of-the-box thinking. Oftentimes I feel like if you are in the company, you're too close to it, and you can't step aside. The other is really identifying what is the message and what is that emotional aspect. I think you guys hear from me, I'm continually harping on benefits versus features, and I guess it doesn't matter which one, but the fact that benefits obviously being the better one. And so companies make that mistake so often, it might be good to have somebody outside looking in. I don't know, Jess, what do you think?
Oh, it's a great question. It really is. And the biggest thing to be able to look at is on a personal level. And the personal level meaning this. We look at anything in our lives, such as, for instance, I had my refrigerator break down. And instead of calling somebody, I spent 10 hours this last weekend fixing it on my own. And we think about that within businesses, right? And I've proven this point to a client that we just recently had spoken to. And all the time we're talking about is the ROI. What's the return on investment? And that's great, but what we really need to be thinking about is the return on marketing, the ROM. What are we trying to be able to accomplish there? The greatest thing is just being able, how much time are you willing to invest into learning it on your own, or do we rely on professionals who do this day in and day out to be able to provide us that key content over there that we're looking for? Really, Dustin, it comes down to pride. It really comes down to pride. Are we willing to be able to outsource that part? And absolutely, you should. It shouldn't be entirely, as we see a lot of companies are like, I'm just going to rely on an agency for everything. Good and bad, yes, there comes a lot of things like that. But on this, you really need to be able to rely on somebody who's had that experience. If you have somebody in your own organization that's been able to prove it, great. Don't outsource it. But don't feel like you can do the old Time Life magazines and the books to say, I can fix my kitchen sink. If you've got certain things that you're not good at, or you confidently can't say, I can get this going and I know the timeline that it's going to help me return, you should be able to think about that one. What's my return on marketing instead of what's my return on investment?
I would agree. I think we just have time for one more. So our last question is, my business has small money conversions. Is ABM right for us? I think you kind of touched on it just now, to be honest, but I actually think that ABM can work for you. Again, I think it's with your target accounts, you should be able to put an expected return. I mean, you expect that these guys we're picking are going to bring us $5,000. Yeah. We expect they're going to bring us $10,000. And then I won't even get into what I think the multiplier is for customer lifetime value. And that's hard for most people to prove anyway. Right. But the fact is that's the real number we should all be looking at. But if we just bring it back to the one we all are more caught up with, and that's just with that initial conversion. And so I think with a small money conversion, you can absolutely do this. I've even seen companies who have a pretty good CPA that have done it with B2C even, and actually sent somebody to get something in return. There's a lot of sites that you actually see like get stuff for free. There's like free, whatever.com, and they will send you their product. It's usually like little Tide bottles or something like that, but they are willing to send you this product. And they are actually doing digital campaigns to get you there to request it. And so in a way, that's an ABM model as well. But I think that the answer is yes, that you can. But you need to sit down and just see what is the return going to be on it. Is it worth it? But I think the greater consideration with ABM is, why are we using ABM? And ABM is mostly used for, do we have gatekeepers that are keeping us out of specific key clients? How do we go around them? How do we supersede them? So ABM is really a way to get direct to that person when there haven't been a lot of successes in other ways. The other is, do you have sales to work with? And so Sales Guy kind of complements ABM in such a good way where you're picking up that phone, and that's where you could actually reduce the cost of your ABM, where you could replace the direct with more of a sales guy, or if he can walk in rather than pay postage or cost of product, then you can decrease it that way. So I think in any model you could make it work, but I think it's more what is the problem we're trying to solve that we're applying account-based marketing to.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the human-to-human contact, especially with smaller companies on that one. It can work really well. Both sides can work, but you hit it perfectly. You know, you got to be able to find out exactly what your market is, and is it going to be a valued interest to be able to put that money towards that one, and find different ways. Become creative, and rely on certain agencies to be able to work with you on that, on strategic methods that will really be able to stretch that dollar over there, be able to prove that it's going to be able to give you back that return, and then you're being able to see it saying, yes, this does work, but it has to be done smartly.
Yeah, and I want to qualify one thing. We talk a lot about return, and
Oh, yeah.
I don't think account-based marketing is always return-based. It's so hard to even introduce your company sometimes. That account-based marketing is that thing that you'll remember. You might actually take this piece home, talk to your wife about it, the word of mouth, but the remembrance of it,
Yeah.
even if it's 3 years down the road, and be like, oh, I remember this one company, dude. The brand building of account-based marketing really is there. And so I don't think that we should be completely hung up with ROI and even really getting something. If you're just out to make your presence known and make people remember who you are,
Oh, yeah.
this is a fantastic tactic. And so for all those listening, you know, we talk about ROM, ROI, but if you feel like you want to reach that person and you're hoping to run into them at a trade show and you don't expect them to convert, that's a perfect expectation. But now at least they're going to remember you. You have a warm conversation to start, oh, I think I got this from you, and just how much easier it is then to close the deal if, you know, if it's down the road or just based on I know who you are kind of.
No, you're absolutely right. That's one of the things, and that's one of the things that I try to touch on as far as ROM is you got to be able to get out there, and there's going to be some type of investment, whether it's your time or it's your money. And either way, it's got to make sense on that one. But branding is so important, especially today, to be able to break through the noise. So you hit right ahead.
I agree. For all those still with us on the webinar, I want to thank you guys. Thank you everybody on Facebook who's joined us. This has been another Fluid webinar series. If you want, you can always comment to us on Twitter at GetFluid, direct message us on LinkedIn, or message us on Facebook. We will be back next month for our next webinar in the series. Thank you guys very much. Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
There we go.